welcome back to your #1 source for cozy gaming and design content. Today we're going to take a look at some of the amazing games that you all suggested to me in the comments of my indie games video. Now, I want to address some of the things that I got wrong in that video. It was very helpfully pointed out to me that Hollow Knight was made by a very much traditionally indie team. And you guys had some very good arguments against the concept of AAA games, pointing out that it's a pretty gatekeepery way of talking about indie games. And ultimately, when you really try to define it, it turns out to be pretty meaningless. For example, let's use Hollow Knight again. Given that this was made by a 3-person team for around $40,000, if we're going to hold this up as an example of a AAA game, that would imply that games made by 3 people and up, and for more than around $40,000, aren't real indie games. And obviously that's unhelpful and would count out most indie games, even the more obscure ones. I think it's easy to kind of lose track of the context of how games are made when we as consumers and kind of fans of games try to analyze them from maybe a less than ideally educated standpoint. And I do think that some of this stuff in my other video wasn't necessarily super accurate, and it did certainly come across like I was trying to gatekeep indie games, and that's not at all what this channel stands for, not at all what I stand for. But regardless, I think this is a very good argument against the idea of a AAA game. I'll be honest, until I published that last video, I was pretty on board with the AAA train. And while I do still think it's important to manage expectations and perhaps segment the indie space in some other ways to make sure that the smaller, more obscure games are given a fair shot by more mainstream audiences, I do think I've come to the tentative conclusion that AAA maybe carries with it some of the more less than helpful implications about a game that can certainly make those who mainly play AAA games, like myself, feel like they're somehow invalid in their preferences. Something which I know I've personally felt a lot when looking for cool indie games to try. I often find myself thinking, oh, is this game actually indie though? And obviously that's a pretty dumb reason to try a game. But I think a lot of that skepticism and overanalyzation, at least from us gamers, comes from the fact that we are all too familiar with large companies using buzzwords and marketing to make us think that we're buying something that we aren't, and making us think we're supporting a smaller studio, making artistic choices when we're actually just funding a big corporation, regardless of the creative intent behind the people who actually made the game. So when an amazing game is sold as indie and given a large platform and lots of marketing like a lot of indies are getting recently, it kind of sets off our BS detector, even when it isn't necessarily warranted. I'm by no means saying massive companies like Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo are the goodies, but these indie directs and indie showcases are exactly what us indie fans have been asking for. A mainstream platform for our favorite games. And while these events definitely have a lot of work to do and plenty to improve on, I think, at least for myself, I need to try and ignore my BS detector at least a little when these events happen, and just take these games for what they are. Cool, fun experiences made by passionate people who, in previous years, wouldn't have really had a platform to do this on. And the fact that they do is frankly amazing. And I think that we kind of need to take these games more for the experience they offer, instead of where they fit into the kind of true indie tier list. So, with that in mind, let's take a look at some of the indie games you guys suggested under that last video, and one I've been wanting to check out from my wishlist. A special shout out goes to users Bashfluff and PattyQ3235 for your incredibly helpful recommendations. If any of you have recommendations after watching this video, please leave them in the comments. I always love to check out new indie games, and I would love to make more of these videos. So, leave those down in the comments, and I'll try to get to as many as I can. Now, without any further ado, I wanted to give each game the time it deserved to fully play through and form an opinion on. So I'll be covering 3 games in this video. Maybe in future entries I'll cover more, but for now it's just going to be these 3. Also, as a disclaimer before you go any further in this video, all these games that I'll be featuring are very much overtly progressive and pro-LGBTQ+, as is, I hope, this channel. So if that puts you off, please go ahead and let yourself out now. So, on to number 3, with... This is a game I've had my eye on for a while. I gave the demo a try a while ago and absolutely loved what they had on display. I immediately put it on my wish list and hotly anticipated its release. If you're looking for a cozy, chill, story-focused game with unique and endearing characters, there really isn't a better choice than Mailtime. From the second you start the game, you're treated to a beautifully unique art style and character designs. This game is exactly what it says on the tin, a pure, cozy experience. Now listen, if you're after sprawling stories with deep discussions about life and philosophy, this ain't it, Chief. But if what you want is cute animals and fun and engaging fetch quests that take you around a lovingly crafted and staged map, which doesn't outstay its welcome, I cannot recommend Mailtime enough. This game is perfect for a dreary, rainy day where you just want to cuddle up with a hot beverage of your choice and play something that makes you feel good and safe. But don't get me wrong, this is a game where every quest is engaging and truly makes you want to find the next character in the chain. It somehow makes a heist where you and a ragtag group of misfits take down a skeezy landlord into a cozy and chill experience, while also getting you invested in the personal lives and domestic disputes between neighbors. I don't want to get too specific with any of this because the charm really is worth experiencing with fresh eyes, but what I can say is that every quest sticks in your mind. I don't think there was a single time that I felt like I was being sent on a useless, time-filling errand just to pad out the game. No, everything had a clear purpose and made you love the inhabitants of this little town like they were longtime friends. Sure, it never gets super deep, and the morals don't extend much past the power of friendship, but sometimes that's all we really need to hear. Don't get me wrong, as much as I love this game, it's not for everyone. The entire thing is low-stakes fetch quests and dialogue, and if that doesn't sound interesting to you, this game really isn't for you. But if that sounds even a little up your alley, I implore you to give it a try, because this is exactly the kind of game I want to find more of. Games that make you feel good, and don't just make you stressed or depressed. And while that certainly has its place in gaming, and I'm not against that at all, I love games like The Last of Us and Death Stranding, but sometimes it's just really nice to step into a world where the worst things get is a pudgy hamster losing their passion for their favorite food. So, if any of this gameplay or description has sounded at all intriguing to you, I highly recommend you go check it out. At $20 all in, this is an amazingly polished and well-rounded experience that is absolutely worth the money. Speaking of money, have you ever wanted to start a small business? You ever want to make stuff and sell it for the pure artistic fulfillment of having your creations out in the world and enjoyed by others? No, this isn't a Squarespace ad spot. That is actually the whole shtick of this next game. This recommendation comes courtesy of Bash Fluff. Sticky Business is probably the best representation of what it sounds like to be running a small artistic business. It's clearly made for streamers, but absolutely playable and fully enjoyable by everyone. Something I really love about it is that it essentially doesn't have an end goal. There is no retiring or building a huge sticker-making empire. You're simply doing what you love, having a chill and cozy time. And the most stressful it gets is when you run out of time in the day to ship out your orders and have to prioritize what you get done. They give you the option to enter streamer mode, where you can have your chat act as the customers and request sticker designs. I think that's an amazing expansion on the idea of streaming and live chats. I love that the devs were able to make a game that not only doesn't lean on microtransactions for adding stickers to your collection, but we're also able to make an incredibly cute and fun sticker making software. After you make a sticker you like, you can obviously use it in-game, but you can also save it to your desktop. and use it for anything you want. Now, I don't stream, and I'm not particularly familiar with how making emotes and stickers and things like that work. But if all you need is a PNG with about 72 DPI, this is perfect. You can make totally custom stickers tailor-made for your chat, and then let them use them in the chat itself. Now, I'll be honest, I've never really been into or understood live chats or live interactions on streams, but for the many, many people who do and really love it, this is a whole nother level of interaction with their favorite streamers. However, potentially negative that could be, we'll give it the charitable read and say that it's an amazing use of technology, and I would love to see more of these kind of cozy stream integrated games pop up, because I think the concept alone is really compelling. Speaking of compelling, that brings me to our last game. This one comes courtesy of PattyQ3235. The synopsis for this game is simple. You're a little gator boy who wants to play a fantasy adventure game with your big sister over fall break, like you used to when you were little. And you have to convince her to put down her homework and play with you. But it goes so much deeper than that. Little Gator Game is an absolute masterclass in character development and impeccable game design. If you haven't tried Little Gator Game and you love The Legend of Zelda and all the games that use and build off that formula, buy it now. This game is such a personal adventure through what it means to grow up and take on your changing responsibilities. I have never played a game that hit as hard as this one. At first glance, this game came across as a silly little meta-commentary on the Zelda formula. And on the surface, if you skip through all the dialogue and just play for the mechanics, sure, I can see an argument for that. But if you do that, you might as well have not played the game. So much of what makes this game the masterpiece that it is comes from the characterization and personality that it gives to all its amazing characters. Now again, like Mailtime, sure, this doesn't take on institutional problems or propose a solution to world-ending issues, but it is an incredible journey through what it means to grow up and change, and how to deal with all the difficult situations that arise from that. And it does it in such a charming and heartwarming way. Every character you interact with is boundlessly likable, and even in the 5-minute interactions you have with many of the characters, they are full characters, and every single one is compelling and masterfully makes you just want to be their friend. I'm not someone who plays games quickly, and this only took me about 4 hours to complete. But in those 4 hours, I laughed and cried, and got to know all these amazing little characters, with motivations and aspirations, which I sympathized with, and all I wanted to do was help them reach their goals. And for a lot of them, I just wanted to give them a big old hug and say, it's gonna be okay. And I know it may sound overly emotional and like a vast over-exaggeration to talk about how I bawled my eyes out for the last 10 minutes of this story, but trust me, it really does cut that deep. These characters are so personal and relatable, and you can't help but love them and get endlessly involved in their stories. I'll end it here and just say that this is probably one of my favorite games that I've played in my life. And that is a very short list made up of mostly multi-million-dollar AAA games that cost 3 to 4 times as much as this one does, but none of them made me feel the way that this game did. And I cannot overstate how amazing and heartwarming this game is. If you're looking for a great example of what indie games can be, look no further than Little Gator Game. I really don't think you'll be disappointed. So, that's 3 indie games you guys should give a try. I can't thank Bashfluff and PattyQ3235 enough for their amazing recommendations for this video. And if any of you have recommendations you think I should try in a future video, feel free to leave those in the comments. I always love to hear from you. But what do you think? Have you tried any of these games? If you have, let's chat about it in the comments. Other than that, thank you so much for watching. I know you didn't have to. Have a great day, and happy gaming.